So, first of all, sir, regarding this new alliance that we're seeing, Russia, India, China back on the table. Firstly, like, could you elaborate and explain to us what exactly are the immediate individual drivers that have actually brought Russia, India, China back to the table right now after 1990s that we saw?
First of all, it is wrong to call the RIC an alliance. It never was an alliance. It was essentially a forum for the three countries to, bring about cooperation amongst themselves, consult one another on international issues. To think of this as some kind of a very alliance-like, forum, that is simply not correct. Whether or not RIC is being revived, we still do not know. Let us see what happens at the SCO summit. But what is happening is that there is perhaps a better relationship between India and China today than it has been the case for the last several years. Some people may relate it to the worsening of our relations with the United States of America. But the normalization of relationship between India and China predates this because it started, as you know, some time ago when we managed to stabilize the border, and also Prime Minister had a meeting with President Xi Jinping of China in Kazan during the last summit. So I think we should keep it in perspective that it's not as if suddenly India has swung from the US to the RIC. That would be not a correct assessment.
Okay, sir. Like almost you answered it, but still I want to understand it that India-China history, I mean, everybody is familiar with that. It shows just how fragile this sort of alignment is. But not alignment exactly, but like the kind of dynamic that we're new dynamic that we're seeing right now. So even if we were to assess, why should New Delhi or even China should be suddenly like trusting each other? Even if it's for optics,
Where
but like what exactly
where
would be
has
the
anybody talked about trust? The issue here is that we have a certain kind of relationship with China. It is of long standing. There are major issues between the two countries. You recently saw the role played by China, for example, in Operation Sindoor. So there are many reasons why India will be somewhat cautious in developing its relationship with China. But as I said, the current improvement in relations between India and China predate recent developments between India and the US. So many people are linking these two things together. I'm saying that's not necessarily the correct way of looking at it. Mostly that you can say is that the deterioration of relations between India and the US may have given some fresh momentum to this process of improvement, but not more than that. So we should not overinterpret
yeah,
what is happening. Engagement with China is very important to India. After all, this is the second largest, economy in the world. We are, as you have seen, we are very heavily dependent on China for a lot of intermediates which are necessary for our exports. So China is an important supplier. Secondly, in terms of, the influence that China has in Southeast Asia, in our own neighborhood, also is something that we have to, a challenge that we have to contend with. So there are any number of reasons why India needs to keep engaged with China, and to the extent possible, try and keep that relationship on a even keel, on a as much of a positive keel as we can, because that is in our interest.
right. But like I said, I mean, US is still our largest trading partner. I mean, be it India or China, US is still their largest trading partner. So can India, I mean, with the current friction right now, because we are the hardest hit country in terms of tariffs, as a punishment on buying Russian oil, But can India really afford to jeopardize its US partnership for the sake of like a short-term grouping that we're seeing with Russia and China? I mean, what is the stake that India is willing to uh, um, put right now, or let go of right now with this grouping?
So, any relationship involves two people, right?
Yes.
So it is not only what India wants in its relationship with the United States, but it also depends on what the US wants in its relationship with India. So if the US is demonstrating to you that it is not really so sensitive to your concerns, I have to take that as a given. Uh,
Yeah.
Now, as I said, it is not as if relations among different powers is only kind of reaction to the other. So this is why I said right in the beginning, don't look at what is happening in our relationship with China
Mm,
as a reaction to what the US may have done.
mm,
Don't look at our relationship with Russia in reaction to what the US has done, because as you know, we have had a very long standing relationship with Russia. It has been a very important partner for us, continues to be an important partner for us. For example, with regard to defense, we have a good relationship with Russia, irrespective of the changes that have taken place in geopolitics. So it's a valuable relationship for us. So I agree that the deterioration of relations with the US may have given a little more momentum to our relationship with China and with Russia. But it is not as if we are saying we choose China and Russia over the United States of America. That is not something that we are saying. And we still have very strong areas of cooperation with the United States of America, even though we are having this major trade dispute. For example, you must have read today that we had online the 2+2 meeting at the official level, which is a good sign if they have continued to go ahead with those meetings. Secondly, as far as some of the uh, areas of cooperation are concerned, like defense technology,
mm,
like our technology partnership, like our counterterrorism cooperation with the United States, those so far are still intact.
mm.
Now, it may change tomorrow, but so far they are still intact. So it is not as if it's a kind of a zero sum kind of a situation. In diplomacy, sometimes there is a little more on one side, sometimes there is a little less on the other side. So it is not an either or kind of a situation. We should not look at it in that manner.
Yeah, yeah, it's not black and white. That's exactly. But there's also a certain sense that uh, with Russia today being far more aligned with China. Of course, I'm not disregarding the kind of equation that India shares with Russia, but in the sense that it's also seen that Russia is a bit more aligned with China. So does that tilt make New Delhi an awkward junior partner in this equation, if we were to assess that?
Well, I would not say become a junior partner,
Mm-hmm.
but you are right that the closeness of relationship between China and Russia, given the difficulties that we have in our relationship with China, it is only natural that that should cause a degree of concern.
Right.
Whether Russia will be obliged because of the closeness of its relationship with China
Mm-hmm.
to somehow, you know, disregard or, degrade the kind of very strong cooperation we have with Russia. So far, the evidence is that it has not brought about that change.
Yeah.
That Russia continues to have a very strong relationship with India, including, for example, on the defense side. So we should be mindful of the fact that there is a certain consistency, there is a certain stability in the relationship, which has not been affected by this. Even though, of course, there are reasons why we would have to have concern if China and Russia become much closer than they are. So far, They are still not allies.
Yeah,
They are very strong partners. So we have to deal with it as it is.
right. And so, like, how exactly is the Washington viewing this? I mean, do they feel that, oh, we should be worried about the blocks, the groupings rise, or they understand fully that, this is like a marriage of convenience and it will just fall apart, it will just collapse.
See, India is not doing anything new.
Mm,
Okay. So India's policy has been that, we should have as wide a network of relationships as possible. We should have as wide a set of relationships as possible, because our experience since our independence has been that the greater the network of relationship, the more room for maneuver you have. So it makes perfect sense for India not to ally itself with one side or the other side, because India's interests are best served if we have a wide network of relationship. There may be issues on which we may want to cooperate much closely with the United States of America. There may be other issues on which perhaps our partner would be somebody different. Okay. Even with China, there are certain global issues like climate change, cybersecurity, the safety of space assets, where we have certain convergences of view. So I think what is important to remember is that even though our relationship with the US has strengthened over the last 20-25 years, we have also not been hesitant to also have other fora, like, for example, the SCO, like, for example, the BRICS, or we have BIMSTEC. There are a number of, fora like this, which we also are members of, and we actively participate. Why? Because our interests are now of a rather wide range. So if we are looking at how best we serve our interests,
mm,
then having this wide network of relationships is something which is very important. And this is something which is not new to the United States of America. It is not new to China. So if China says, oh, you are joining the Quad, this is an Asian NATO, we say, no, we are not an ally here.
mm,
But you cannot veto who I talk to,
mm,
right? So, a same thing applies to the on the other side. If I am part of BRICS, which helps me promote some of our interests, you cannot tell me, sorry, if you want good relations with us, you shall not be part of BRICS,
mm,
or you shall not be part of SCO. If you accept that argument, then you might end up being quite isolated in the international system. And that is not good for India.
mm. Right. So, although, like, essentially, yes, like you stated that this is nothing new. Um, India is going to the SCO. This is not exactly like a revival of the RIC that Moscow tried to do in the 1990s, but still, um, considering we cannot discount this, that the tariff, the punitive tariff that US has imposed on India, it's kind of like has acted like a catalyst to what we are seeing right now. So if let's say US's pressure eases, if tariffs are rolled back or whatever, because we've seen that happening, would this rebooted sort of cooperation that we're seeing, the kind of the camaraderie that the leaders are showing right now, so would that just collapse overnight, or would that
No,
survive?
we are looking at the SCO meeting or the BRICS meeting as only tactical moves on the part of India,
Mm,
which, as I said, is a wrong way to look at it.
mm,
It is true that your participation in this or that forum may not have the same level. Okay, some may be more important to you than the others may be.
mm,
But as I mentioned, that we are not looking at our participation in these networks as only tactical, because this is something which helps us in creating more space for ourselves in the global system.
yeah.
So to say that, oh, if, for example, the tariffs are removed, we should, stop paying much attention to SCO or the BRICS. That would be a wrong way to look at it, and I would certainly hope that we don't go in that direction. Okay. The other thing is that with regard to these tariffs by the US, uh, it started off as a trade issue,
Hmm.
right? Now it is no longer trade issue
Yeah.
because Trump is using commercial instruments for geopolitical purposes. So the nature of this particular, confrontation has changed.
Hmm.
If it was only a trade dispute, you could still maybe try to find some way around it. But he's not using the trade issue only to get trade concessions from you. He's saying, I'm going to use this trade instrument to make you aligned with what I consider, United States of America considers its interests.
Yeah.
So you should not go closer to Russia, but I can invite Putin to Alaska, right?
Yeah.
You put sanctions on me or you say that you are putting sanctions on me for buying oil from Russia, but you are very wary of using the same kind of a stick with China. Why are you not using that stick for China? Because you say, no, that relationship is very important.
Yeah.
You
Precisely.
know, we have quite a lot of things at stake.
Hmm.
So, that is the reality that you are facing. And it is true that the kind of leverage that China may have in its relationship with the US, we do not have.
Hmm.
That is reality. We
Hmm.
have to accept that.
Hmm.
But it does not mean that, we react to this only through whole lot of tactical moves. So, which is why I'm saying that it is not as if we have become members of BRICS only now, or that we have been participants in SCO only now. So if it was that India has decided to become a member of BRICS because of what is facing from the US,
Right.
or India has decided to be more active in SEO because of what the US is doing. The fact is that we have always been members of these fora.
Hmm.
And we have been members of these fora because they also advance at least some of our interests.
Hmm.
So I don't think we should be looking at what is happening between India and the SCO, or what is happening between India and China, or what is happening in India and Russia only through the prism of India's relationship with the US.
Hmm.
The world is a larger place than the United States, even if United States is the number one part, but it is not as if the whole world is just United States. So we have to have a broader set of relationships. Why we value our relationship with the US,
Hmm.
and we would hope that it doesn't get completely derailed. We have no interest in derailing it.
Yeah.
So we are continuing to cooperate with the US wherever there is a willingness on the part of the US to cooperate with us. But if the US itself, tries to degrade the relationship or withdraw from cooperation in this or that area, there is not much we can do.
Hmm. Right. Although, I mean, yes, it makes a lot of sense that yes, we cannot just look at it with, Trump putting pressure on India. But still, I mean, if we look at individual countries, individually, but Russia is also looking for partners right now because we've seen I mean, allies right now because we've seen what happened between Trump and Putin and how the equations changed. So it's also like a desperate attempt to seek sort of like concrete and more reliable sort of relations with the other countries, and in this scenario, India and China. And that is why it's also sort of uh, relying on the optics that the SEO will give. So lastly, like, how do you see if both, I mean, if the three leaders, the Trinity, as it's being called, if they make it to that, I mean, if they have like a conversation and they come on the podium together and the optics that will come out of it, what do you think that message is going to be? I mean, to the West, to the global order, to everything, what do you think that will be?
So optics are always good, but you should not, as I said, go beyond the optics.
Yeah.
So, uh, would their coming together on the same platform mean that something materially, something very significant has happened? I would argue not really. Okay. It is good that they are, working together, because having a good relationship with Russia, having good relationship with China, not looking at those relationships always in an antagonistic kind of a frame,
Mm.
is good for India, because it gives us more space for maneuver, especially when we are facing considerable amount of pressure from the United States. But don't forget that if you take the Alaska summit,
Mm.
okay, you have a very major attempt being made by the United States of America to really establish a very different kind of relationship with Russia,
Yeah.
whatever be the motivation. It's not just, end the Ukraine war. It is more than that.
Mm.
Secondly, there is a major effort being made by Trump also to reach some kind of an overall understanding with China.
Mm.
So it is not as if we are doing something which the US is parallelly not doing itself.
Yeah.
Okay. So if the US is changing its equation with Russia, or at least wanting to change that equation,
Mhm.
it is wanting to change its equation with China. If the US is moving in that direction,
Mhm.
why should there be concerns about India moving in that direction?
Mm.
So I think, overall, it's good that India is going to the SCO. It is good that there could be another summit meeting between Xi Jinping and Prime Minister Modi. Maybe some of the legacy issues can be, dealt with. It's good that Putin is going to be there, because after some time he's going to be paying a bilateral visit to India. Therefore, it is good that in advance of that, there is a meeting between the two leaders. So, for us, being able to demonstrate that we are not isolated, we are not as if the only relationship which is important for us is only the US
Yeah.
relationship. I think it's not in our interest to even suggest that. So recognizing that India US relations are very important, perhaps more important to us than it may be for the United States of America. But there are other relationships which have value for India, even with respect to, for example, the Quad, which is seen as part and parcel of the US being worried about, China's domination of this region, wants to constrain Chinese expansion. We are not today certain whether the next Quad meeting will take place. Okay. We have seen that other elements of US Indo-Pacific strategy have also become a bit shaky.
Mm.
You have Australia, UK, US, AUKUS nuclear submarine deal. Now it seems that that deal may be either delayed for a long time, or may not even go forward.
Yeah.
Or the relationship with Japan and with Korea. You see, there is a great deal of uncertainty and concern among these allies of the United States as to whether they can really rely on the US.
Mm.
And if there is a major change in US relationship with China, where does it leave those who are concerned about China's policies in this region?
Yeah.
So, what are we doing? We are hedging our bets, as any good diplomacy would try to do when you are faced with a situation like this. As I said, we should not overinterpret,
Mm.
but at the same time, I think there should be a recognition that these relationships are important to us, and they give us a little more space than we would have otherwise. You know, and this has stood us in good stead for a long period of time. There is a certain consistency in India's foreign relations. Every new government comes and says, I'm making a major departure from policy. Usually, you find that very soon they have to come to that same
Yeah.
central theme as any government from the past.
Geopolitics mostly run in continuum. I mean, it's nothing that like,
It should. It
yeah.
should.
Yeah.
Naturally, things will be different. Today, you are a different India from where you were 50 years ago.
Mm.
You are a different India from where you were 10 years ago. So, naturally, you have changed and the world around you has changed. So, obviously, the manner in which you conduct your foreign policy will be different. But what is the objective? The objective has not changed.
Mm.
That I must retain what we have called strategic autonomy.
Right.
That is, decisions which are important for the vital interests of India. Those decisions should be taken in New Delhi,
Mm.
not somewhere else.
Precisely.
That's the important.
Yeah.
And that, I think, lodestar in terms of our foreign policy has not really changed.
Mm. Right. Okay, sir. I think that was about it. You answered it really amazingly. Most of our I mean, yes, like the SEO summit, the optics, like you said, it's always great, but the messaging is something that I wonder how the West is going to perceive that. But yeah, thank you so much for speaking to Business Standard on this.